President Trump bumps up against the constitutional amendment, and he's gearing up to meet with the president of China next month at a summit to discuss the trade war and other things. Lastly, the Heritage Foundation comes out with a very interesting article that illustrates the positive effects the tax cuts have had on Americans across the country. Now, starting off today, we're going to be talking about President Trump's interview with Axios, in which he claimed that he could do away with the birthright citizenship with an executive order. This right here has caused a lot of controversy. And the reason it's caused a lot of controversy is because of what the 14th Amendment says. And, well, part of what the 14th Amendment states is the following. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. This segment in the 14th Amendment has led people to call what President Trump has said unconstitutional, and that he cannot do that. Now, this is more than likely true that he cannot actually sign an executive order that will rescind the birthright citizenship. However, what this could do is get the conversation started, and I think that is exactly what he's after, is to do nothing more but to start the conversation about how illegal immigrants are abusing the kindness of the United States. And what I mean is, now, it is true, I'm going to have to preface a little bit. It is true that illegal immigrants do not receive social benefits on their own. They can't. It's impossible for them to do that unless they're committing some type of fraud wherein they have a fake social security card or number or a fake driver's license, fake birth certificate, etc. to receive those benefits. Unless they do those things, it is pretty much impossible for them to reap any of the social benefits here in America. However, there is a loophole to this. This is something I just found out as well. And that loophole is, I think, the main reason behind why we want to get this conversation started about the birthright citizenship. Basically, if an illegal immigrant comes over here, gets pregnant, or is pregnant, either or, and gives birth to their child in the United States, under the current law, that child is now an American citizen, which then means the family of that child, who are not legal citizens in the United States, can reap the benefits of social programs in America because they have a United States citizen who does qualify for those needs. So, there have been multiple studies and surveys that have come out and actually shown that there's billions of dollars being lost by this right now. Billions of dollars are being paid out to illegal immigrants that are coming over here, giving birth, and then reaping the benefits from their child, which is why President Trump wants to do something about this. I think, like I've stated, he's just doing this to light a fire under Congress's ass, to get them moving and to have the discussion. People like Senator Lindsey Graham is actually excited about this because this is the first president that has actually come out against this and wants to do something about this. And he feels that it is very necessary to do something about this. Now, there are people who refer to the Supreme Court case in 1898 with U.S. v. Wong Kim Ark. Now, this case was a case regarding citizenship where the 14th Amendment was applied. However, it was applied to two legal immigrants that lived in San Francisco at the time. They were Chinese, and they had a child while living in San Francisco. And so the whole case revolved around whether or not their kid deserved citizenship in America. The court ended up ruling in favor. Now, people on the left specifically are claiming that that right there settles the whole case. That a Supreme Court case already settled the 14th Amendment. There is no ambiguity. If you're born in the United States, regardless of who your parents are, you are a citizen right off the rip. However, that isn't the case, because that Supreme Court case only talked about legal immigrants. It did not talk about illegal immigrants, which is the problem that we're discussing now. There obviously isn't an issue with somebody coming over here legally and having a child. That's not an issue, right? What is an issue is people coming over here and abusing our system when they find ways to do so. And that's exactly what's happening. And now, Mike Pence, Vice President Mike Pence, has had an interview today with Political Playbook, and he is quoted saying the following: "We all cherish the language of the 14th Amendment, but the Supreme Court of the United States has never ruled on whether or not the language of the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, applies specifically to people who are in the country illegally." And he's 100% right. Now, to give a little context to that, what he's referring to, that line where it says subject to the jurisdiction thereof, implies that it is predicated on the United States law. And the United States law doesn't allow for people who are undocumented migrating here illegally to enter the country. It doesn't allow that. It doesn't allow that. So the question to be asked is, if a person comes over here illegally, are they able to reap the benefits from doing so by having a child? In my humble opinion, I would say no. I would say no. But I have to add that I am very, very liberal when it comes to immigration. But we should have some rules and some regulations towards it. I mean, I'm all for having more people come into the country. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it helps us build as a nation. It obviously helps the workforce. We have 7 million unfilled jobs right now. We have more jobs that are in need than we have workers to fill them. That's crazy. So there is kind of a worker shortage here in America. So immigration is not a bad thing at all when done correctly. But this right here is just abusing the system. That's all it's doing. And it's not right. It's not right whatsoever. And so hopefully this right here, although it's stirring the pot a little bit more, will begin the conversations that need to be had in Congress, in the government in general, regarding the birthright citizenship. So my humble opinion is that President Trump is doing this as a tactic to get that conversation started. We'll see what happens, though. I could be wrong, but we'll see what happens. That's what I think he's doing. Now, moving on to something else here. The United States and China will be meeting at a summit coming up November 30th through December 1st. This will be the first time President Trump and the President of China have met in a while, and they'll be talking specifically about the trade war and other things, I'm sure, but they want to work to mend the relationship that they have right now because it's pretty rocky. And China is actually hurting really badly from the trade war. You can check out other episodes that I've done that I've covered exclusively the effects the trade war has had on China. But some new information came out today, and that is the yen, which is the currency over in China, is now at its lowest point since the financial crisis. So that's not good news for them either. That's not good news at all. And President Trump did suggest that great deals can be had with China coming up in this summit. However, if nothing is done, he will impose about another $267 billion with a B billion dollars on China in tariffs. Now, obviously, nobody wants to keep the trade war going. I think what he's doing is just leveraging his position so that way they need to come to the table and agree with something that is in our favor. Now, I think this is important that we come to a deal. I think it is very important we come to a deal. And the reason I say it's important is not only because it will and can eventually affect our economy, although it isn't really hurting our economy at the moment. We know that Ford is hurting due to some of the tariffs, and part of the reason they're going out or becoming bankrupt or whatever's going on with them is due to the tariffs. Understandable, but that's not the only reason. It's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons. Also, President Trump is losing some ground in some of the Midwestern states, like I believe I believe Iowa may be one of the states. It's more out west, but I believe Iowa may be one of the states where he's losing some ground simply because the farmers are really feeling it because of the trade war. And so people are upset. Farmers are upset at him for what he's doing. So it is not looking that great for him politically in some areas. However, I do think what he's doing will pay off in the long run. And the reason I think that we really, really, really need to settle this dispute here with the trade war is because of the military tensions that are increasing by the day with the United States and China. That is something that we need to hurry up and solve right away, because that will not be good for anybody, if we have issues with China. That wouldn't be good for the world. Hopefully nothing comes out of that. Hopefully what comes out of this meeting is a deal. That's what we can all hope for, right? It'll be best for everybody. So we'll see exactly what happens. That comes up at the end of next month. So I'll make sure to stay updated on that. Now, lastly, the article from the Heritage Foundation that covers the benefits of the tax cuts. Now, it's titled, "Here's How the Tax Cuts Are Helping Americans in Every State." And I'll go ahead and I'll read it for you guys. They say it's about a 1-minute read or so. So, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act has been one of the strongest and boldest reforms of President Trump's first term in office. According to analysis from the Heritage Foundation, the tax cut will give hard-working Americans tax breaks in every congressional district in every state. Across the nation at large, the average American will take home on average $1,400 more on their paycheck in 2018. For married couples with 2 children, that figure doubles to $3,000. While higher tax districts will see more in dollar savings as a result of tax cuts, they are certainly not the only winners from the Trump tax cuts. In fact, lower income districts will feel more relief in their tax burden, as they will see a higher percentage of their taxes cut than Americans in higher income areas. For example, in New York, 15th Congressional District, tax filers on average will notice a decrease of 30% in their tax bill in 2018. All across the country, the manifestation of this policy are quite impressive. Americans are better off from the tax cuts because they get to keep a larger portion of their paycheck. Moreover, the changes in tax rates are providing better economic incentives, leading to higher paychecks. Lower tax rates mean business investment more and consequently demand more labor. Greater labor demand means that businesses hire more workers and increase wages. As a result, American workers get a bigger piece of the American pie. Bigger piece of the bigger economic pie is what it says, sorry. As a result, Texas 7th Congressional District can expect to see on average $35,000 more in take-home pay over the next 10 years. By the same time, a family of one of four in Virginia's 10th Congressional District should enjoy an average of almost $70,000 of their own money back in their pockets. This money can be spent on daycare, college tuition, or retirement savings, among many other things. Unfortunately, some in Congress have called to undo this tax reform, which would effectively wipe out the benefits of the law. According to our analysis, the cost of repealing the Tax Act in 2020 would be an average of $26,906 in lost income gains over the next 10 years. For a family of 4, that would cost over $45,000. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is allowing Americans in every community across the nation to take home more of their paycheck. Congress should not only keep the law in place, but also work towards making the law permanent well before its current 2025 sunset date. So, I think this is a pretty interesting article here. And the reason I say that is because you hear a lot of negative things that come out in the media where they claim the tax cuts are only benefiting the 1%, which is false, as we've just read here in the article. Everybody is benefiting from it. I know I'm getting more on my paycheck. I know my wife's getting more on her paycheck. I'm sure you all are receiving more on your paychecks now since the tax cuts came into effect because the tax brackets have lowered. And now there's even some bills that are being proposed, which I've done an article on. If you want to, not an article, I'm sorry, I've done an episode on. If you want to check that out too, covering these 3 bills to actually make this permanent. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully, we can make sure that these tax cuts remain permanent and benefit everybody. And I get the fact that people are upset that there are things where people can receive tax cuts on their private jets, and the 1% is, and businesses are receiving huge tax cuts. Fair enough, I get you. But how can you truly be American without making sure everybody in the nation is going to at least benefit from these tax cuts? That seems like the American thing to do, to make sure everybody gets a piece of that pie, or at least has a better footing, so that way they can get to a better position due to the tax cuts. And I want to make this point real quick on the private jet thing. I do understand why people are upset that these million and billionaires can receive tax deductions or tax cuts, whatever, on their private jets. I understand the frustration there. The only point I would have to make is that these people who own these private jets are probably owning them strictly for business and not really for pleasure. Obviously, if they get the occasional day off, which you have to think, if a person's making over 6 figures up to the 7 figures, 8 figures, 9-figure range, they're going to have very little downtime. They're a very productive person. They are an asset. They have to keep moving. They have to keep doing something. If they have that kind of money, they're not just sitting around. They can't be. There's too much going on in their lives. So that private jet is just helping them create more wealth throughout the nation and in their own pockets. And the reason I say throughout the nation is because they're the people who pay the most in taxes. I've done an episode on this as well, where about 70%, if I'm not mistaken, of the income tax that is collected actually comes from the top 1% of earners. Or top 10%, 90% comes from about the top 1%. So these people are paying the most in taxes. These people are the ones who are able to invest into companies. They're able to help startups become successful and a whole bunch of other things. So, and also, historically, it has been proven that the lower the tax cuts, the more money the government brings in from taxes, because the wealthy and businesses want to stay here if it's reasonable for them to. If it's not, then they will do what anybody else would do. If they had the option to get lower taxes, would you not take it? I know I would. If there was a way for me to pay less on taxes, I would for sure take it. Because I don't really care for giving my money to the government. I understand the purpose of it. But I'd rather keep more of my money, because I can spend my money better than they can. And I'm sure you can too. So I think this is a very interesting article. I like it. And I recommend, if you haven't already, go check out some of the other things Heritage Foundation has done. They've done some pretty good work. Now, that's what we have for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. And like always, if there's an article or something that you would like me to cover, or you would like me to do, whatever, please let me know, and I'd be happy to do that. So I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.